I just want to very quickly welcome everybody. My name is Steve Bromage. I'm the Executive Director. We have it's been a busy and rich year, and we have a rich and full hour for you, trying to bring you up to date on the state of MHS and all the things going on here and where we're focused. As Kathleen mentioned, just in the interest of time, so we have a pretty packed hour or so program, but then I and others are going to stay online afterwards, and so we can just open it up to conversation and chat. We can build in a little bit of social and connection that way as well after the formal part of the program is underway. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Jean Gulliver, who is the chair of our Board of Trustees and has been a tremendous leader, and we've been very lucky to have during this crazy year. And Jean is going to MC the first part of the program. So Jean, thanks so much.
Welcome, everybody. Most of us were here a year ago as we sat at our screens for the first large meeting like this for many of us, and wondered and had no idea where we'd be. And Steve and I and the entire staff are so pleased to be able to tell you, and as you will hear during the course of this meeting, how strong our response has been to disruption and to change, how agile and how stable the organization is. And that is remarkable that we, a year later, are about to give you all the reports we're about to give you. And so much of that is because of our membership that stayed with us, that supported us, that came to a new meeting style, that enjoyed our presentations. The staff put together a program none of us could have envisioned a year ago, and it's been engaging and has brought in new members and has kept our loyal membership with us. And we thank you so very much for adapting to this new world. And we thank the staff for creating this new world. So that is the pleasure for Steve and me to be speaking to all of you from this very positive point as we look at the close of our first 2 centuries, which is quite a statement to make. So welcome, thank you. We're going to give you much more information. One other piece that I would like to address before we get deeply into the meeting is, as we all know, for our society, certainly our American society, but also around the world, the issues of equity and diversity have been highlighted in extraordinary and often difficult ways this year. We have responded and tried to elucidate much of what's happening through our exhibits and our most recent one, which opened last week. And we hope you're able to see and learn from these, as I certainly have. But we also wanted you to know that issues of diversity and equity, inclusion, and sustainability are front of mind for our board, for our staff, and we believe for most of our membership, given the responses you've had to much of our programming. In line with that, we are looking carefully at our positions within our holdings, within our investments, and want you to know that we're being very thoughtful, careful, thorough in considering and working with our investment advisors, considering how best to support and live in a way within Maine Historical Society that is in alignment with, and this is probably the letters you've heard before, DEIS, again, diversity, equity, inclusion, and sustainability. We are incorporating that into our investment portfolios for our endowment and into our operating principles, our HR aspects, just governance across the board. And you'll be hopefully hearing and seeing more about those commitments. And at the end of the meeting, if people have any questions about what that may or may not mean in our operations, we'll be very pleased to talk with you further about that. You did all receive minutes of last year's meeting, And if there are any questions or changes, we've not received any from sending them out. But if there are none at this point, I would like a motion to accept those minutes.
I'll move, Jean.
Thank you. And a second? Do I have a second for that? Second. Thank you very much. Is there, I'm just going to ask if there are any objections to accepting those minutes. Hearing none, we will accept them and so note in the meeting minutes. Thank you. We have shared with you a list of members and participants in MHS who we lost this year. And I would just like to put that in a broader context. As you all know, this is our 199th year. Next year, we begin our 3rd century. And I and others were struck. There are many people on this list of those who have left us this year, as there are each and every year, who have been at the core of what MHS does, who have given generously of their wisdom, their time, their resources, which is why we are about to embark on our 3rd century. And it seemed a moment to stop, reflect on who we lost this year, but reflect on the fact that for 199 years, we've looked at members, we've known them, they're people we have shared laughter and tears and commitment and conversations and arguments and all around issues about the history and the past and future of Maine. And the fact that we are an intact organization could encompass the very white men who for certainly the 1st century and probably the 1st century and a half primarily were MHS. And the fact that we are where we are today and have been able to grow and change with society, not come apart at the seams, not have people turn away from us, but have the support and the engagement and the challenge to change and all the thinking and process that goes on. It's pretty damn special in this day and age. Thank you all. Now we'll have just a moment of silence. Thank you. Moving into the meeting, everybody, with that wisdom, I hope, inside each of us. So we have the report of the electors now. And you all have before you this wonderful group of people who are either coming up for a 2nd term or a 3rd term, or are newly joining the board. And we appreciate the fact that Bob Green and Lee Webb are joining the board for a 2nd time after having taken a pause, which is, again, pretty remarkable and fabulous. So do we have a motion to accept these people and elect them to the board of MHS?
Have moved to accept the report of the Inspector of Elections.
Thank you, Rusty. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. And again, I will ask only if there are objections. Hearing none, welcome everybody. Thank you for continuing, or for the first time, Candace, thank you for joining us. We hope we'll see your face here on many cycles. Thank you. And now we're going to hear a lot of information from Drew Swenson. Drew?
Thank you, Jean. Good morning, everyone. I will not accept accounting principles because this is a beautiful day and we want to get things moving. So I'll just cover going financially. And I think the point that Jean raised and that I want to reemphasize is we financially really did persevere through COVID-19. This was not an easy time for this organization or for any other organization. But between the volunteers of our board and the wonderful work, exemplary work of our staff, we did very well through this. I want to focus on the fact that strategically we were refocusing our efforts on cultivating donors and benefactors and bequests and new revenue streams. We started that process about 2 years ago, and that has continued to bear fruit, and some wonderful work done by, again, both board members and staff to make that occur. So that has improved our bottom line. At the same time, knowing that we have to be nimble as an organization in these kind of times where COVID, and we actually had some very detailed contingency plans that were put together by staff with the assistance of the board in case we needed to make some more difficult decisions about the organization and the programming. Thankfully, because of the work done to develop new donors, the work done by Karen Pelletier, our Chief of Finance, and Steve and others to get PPP loans and Maine Cares grants, and to also find new private foundation grants, we were able to successfully, through a series of efforts, break even for this, not only the past fiscal year, which was for the year ended June 30th, 2020, but we are anticipating a break even again for this year, 6/30/21. And not only does that break even, what that means is we're able to preserve all of our jobs, which is very important in these difficult economic times, but also preserve our mission and make sure the programming that we had and were revising for COVID and to be a bit more virtual was something we could continue to get out to our members and to the people who are very interested in what we do. So kudos to everybody who helped us persevere through COVID and make the financial situation work. Now thinking forward, going forward, beyond COVID-19, we will certainly continue to do as an organization the same things that we have been doing. Continue to focus on cultivating donors, cultivating testamentary bequests for those members or friends of the organization who pass on. We're also working on additional revenue streams, whether that be with, let's say, Portland Museum of Art and their fine art storage, or archival services that our team is working on to help other not-for-profits or historical organizations place archival materials into a digital format.
Charging.
We also are paying attention to the American Rescue Plan, the new plan that came out from the Biden administration, to see where we might be able to obtain some benefit from that. And I know the governor just recently submitted the $1 billion plan to the legislature. So we'll be paying attention to that, and our team is looking at that, paying it and staying in touch with, let's say, the Maine Association of Not-for-Profits and other organizations who might have a closer finger on the pulse of where there may be an opportunity for organizations such as ours to continue to receive benefits as we rebuild our cash flows and reopen after lockdown. I do want to note that with respect to the PPP loans that we did receive, we received one in the first round and one in the second round. We fully anticipate that those will be 100% forgiven because they have been utilized to pay for payroll, to keep our team employed and delivering the programs. So that will be good. We didn't add to any debt as a result of the lockdown or closures. That's how well the volunteers, the board, and the team has worked to make things positive for us. And lastly, I wanted to make mention of the fact that Jean had talked about this as well. We continue to focus, a very committed focus on the endowment and growing that endowment and the use of our buildings, protecting their value, enhancing their value. In this past year, our investments rose by 23%. We do utilize some of those funds for operations consistent with your prudent use. But we are also focusing the efforts of our investment advisors on what Jean has focused on as the ESG and the DEIA policy. So we want to be culturally focused on environmental, social, and governance concepts, and diversity, inclusion, accessibility, and equality, and so on, and equity. We find that's important. And in fact, what we found, the more we've dug into this, and the more our investment advisor has been advising on this, we find that the best yields we've been getting have been coming from investment advisors and fund advisors who have already embraced those principles. So we will continue that focus because the performance of our endowment has been very attractive, thinking about and utilizing those sustainable and positively impactful methods and investment strategies. Finally, we are talking to benefactors about helping us perhaps pay down some of the debt that we have on the Riverside Art Storage Building and Library Building here in Portland. And that is an ongoing discussion, and it's something we've been working on for a couple of years now, and it's getting closer, we think, to a positive result. So on balance, I think we've had 2 very difficult years, but the talent and passionate commitment of volunteers, board members, and staff has been truly remarkable to allow us to come out of this lockdown, out of COVID in a positive way, and actually improving our performance financially over where we were just 3 or 4 years ago, where we were concerned about the overall changes to our world when we no longer had the ability to rely on as much in federal grant money as we used to. And we still don't, but we have been able to pivot and do very well and continue to improve on that. You'll hear a little bit more about it later on, about how we've been able to grow our donor base with some tremendous work and really fine people who are willing to help us with our programs. And with that, I will finish, and I'll be available at the end. If there is any Q&A, I can certainly and would be happy to provide any answers on the financials. Jean, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Drew. And I am going to turn this over to Steve Bromage now to lead us through the remainder of the meeting, which contains a lot of fun, exciting, interesting stuff. Steve?
Yeah, thanks so much, Jean. Well, first, it's so nice to see you all. While Zoom has its challenges, I do like, it feels there's more face-to-face and eye contact than in a bigger room. So it's nice to see you all. And we really appreciate your taking the time this morning to hear updates and really to participate in the important governance work of MHS. As Jean mentioned, it's kind of amazing. Every time I saw the print, it's the 199th annual meeting. And the fact that we're going to be celebrating our 200th birthday next year is pretty remarkable and part of this bicentennial period we've been in. So I'll talk a lot about kind of where that positions us. So I think I'd like to start just by characterizing this remarkable moment, both in the life of MHS and of Maine. We are, from the vantage point of June 2021, at the intersection and jumping off point of so many interesting and important things. On one hand, we are emerging, we hope, from a historic pandemic that has turned life as we knew it upside down and challenged us all really deeply. Nearly 600,000 Americans have died, including 825 Mainers. That's a really significant impact, in so many ways. It's just impacted all aspects of our lives. We see so much cautious optimism out there as Maine begins to reopen. And I think Maine is going to be a bonkers place this summer. There's a lot of pent up demand for Maine and desire to be here. This has been a year that will shape the consciousness of all of us who have been through it, I think really much as the Depression did. Our kids will tell tales of masks and being at home and having had their schooling and the rituals of little league, sleepovers, proms, graduations, and trips put on hold, and of being stuck with their parents too much and a lot. I think we adults are going to remember the many things that we had taken for granted, the freedom of running to the store, of easily visiting family, of sitting down in a restaurant, and of all those rites of passages and those moments that we've missed. And I think we're all going to remember these new routines of working from home, Zooming, and all this old school family time in this new modern age. It's really been quite an experience, and you can just imagine how our kids are going to remember and talk about it in the future. This is also, I think, a moment to recognize and move beyond Maine's bicentennial. As you know, the bicentennial was the focus of such vast preparation and anticipation across Maine. While the bicentennial didn't play out as planned or imagined, I think MHS made the best of it. We adapted, continued to provide strong programming, and created a lot of resources that will be permanently accessible. I think you've seen and heard me talk about that previously. It wasn't what it was, but we all marked and thought about it. I think the state itself was going to be winding things up. There's going to be a parade, I believe, in August in Lewiston. So look for that, as well as perhaps a televised program. So again, moving beyond the pandemic and the bicentennial, I think we're really now at a moment of transition, and one that MHS is really prepared for. As we've kind of come into 2021, MHS is focused on what comes next, preparing Maine and MHS to thrive in our next third centuries. After a year of defined by the health and economic crisis of the pandemic, urgent equity issues, and a political climate that really went off the rails, I think Mainers and people across the country are really eager and hungry to look ahead. So what does that future look like? I think MHS is uniquely positioned to help Maine move forward. Despite the profound challenges of the pandemic, MHS has come out of 2020 with focus and momentum. It's been a hard year, but we've seen such a strength, resiliency, and resourcefulness from the whole MHS team. As Drew and Jean mentioned. And I think, again, you have helped us build a really modern, adaptable, forward-looking organization through your membership, partnership, and financial support. We can't thank you enough for that. You know, I think the position we're in now is because all of us have participated in really trying to build a forward-looking organization that could respond. And I think that's served us pretty well. I think this is also a year that it would have been really natural to be cautious and to avoid the risks that come with change and in new initiatives. But instead, MHS really leaned in and I think found extraordinary opportunities to serve the needs of Mainers, to advance the organization, and to really lay the groundwork that's going to drive MHS's vitality in the decades ahead. As Drew recounted, MHS has come through the pandemic relatively whole financially. So we estimated that we're going to lose approximately $300,000 this year in revenue from admissions, fundraising events, and other sources impacted by the pandemic. As Drew pointed out, PPP and the Maine Cares Fund helped us keep the staff fully employed and moving forward. And many of you also did increase your giving significantly. That has had a huge impact and helped keep the wind in our sails. So thank you very much for that. We are working hard across the organization to replace that revenue, but also, again, continue to build a broad revenue base that's going to support our work. So once we developed the financial plan for weathering the pandemic, we really focused on what work could continue despite the pandemic, and where and how could MHS be most impactful. So there are kind of four areas that I'd like to highlight. The first is MHS's virtual programs and remote engagement. I also want to mention the major collections initiatives we've been able to advance and or to launch this year. I want to talk a little bit about our Maine History Maker Award program featuring the LL Bean family. And finally, to talk about our efforts to support dialogue around race and equity issues in Maine. I think together, all of these areas demonstrate the remarkable dimensions of MHS and the real breadth and quality of we managed to do with a very small staff and budget. I was kind of amazed throughout May by these major initiatives that were coming out, and I think really successful in doing really important work that reflects who we are. So I'd like to start by, again, talking a little bit about the remote programming. Here we are. With people homebound, socially isolated, and desperate for connection, information, and entertainment, we recognized that MHS was actually very well positioned to shift our focus to the digital realm, an area where we in fact have developed significant resources and expertise over the years. Maine Memory, of course, provided a strong foundation, gave us a digital platform to share Maine content developed with 270 partners across the state over the last couple decades, including historical context for the pandemic and these social equity issues. Last year, 500,000 users visited 1.9 million different Maine Memory Network pages in 2020. That was a 47% increase over 2019. As we all know, people were home and on their computers. Zoom also has provided MHS with a platform that was unimaginable a year ago. Zoom has collapsed geography for MHS and is enabling people across the state and country who care about Maine to actively participate in MHS. This has been, I can't tell you what a big strategic priority that has been for MHS for years, and is really essential to our goal of expanding MHS's reach, audience, and impact. We really believe that MHS can and should be the conduit for everyone's love of Maine, and for that to be able to operationalize that, you have to have everybody able to participate, and Zoom has been really a godsend. Likewise, Zoom also really enables us to draw on speakers, expertise, and perspectives from across the country, something that wouldn't be feasible or cost effective in person. You just look at the last couple of weeks when we had Eddie Ball and Eddie Glaude Jr., it really would be unlikely and difficult and expensive and logistically complex to bring people of that caliber to Maine on a regular basis. I think Zoom also allows us to be really flexible and quick on our feet and responsive to the interests and needs of our community. I think you've seen, and I've talked about in the past, you know, the most important thing MHS has is a really creative entrepreneurial team who's got an eye out into the community and to dialogue. Zoom lets us quickly put together a panel, a speaker, etc., and provide programming in very real time. I think that's really important in this day and age if, you know, we want to contribute to dialogue and to really be able to provide something. I think more than anything, Zoom enables people to participate, connect with each other, learn, share ideas, and be part of an ongoing dialogue about Maine. Again, it's pretty remarkable when you see the diversity of topics that are coming up and we're talking about, and it's fascinating always looking at who's participating from where, and there's a lot of people we care about and are new to us spread all over the place, and you can see the consistent participation. And again, I think it's all about Maine and being connected and thinking very actively about where the state is going. So in the past year, MHS produced 45 Zoom programs on topics ranging from the suffrage centennial to the bicentennial, to things like apples and railroads, to these really pressing social justice issues. So approximately 4,500 people have participated in these programs. So last year, we tripled the number of people participating in MHS's public programs from those who participated in person in 2019. We've also we've heard from people around the country who have joined or rejoined MHS because of these programs and who've expressed how much more connected to Maine and how much more informed they feel. So that's really important positive feedback for us. I think one of the best things is you can view all of those Zoom programs on the MHS website at your convenience. We've really essentially created MHS on demand. You might not have the resources or membership yet of Netflix, but I love MHS on demand and being able to provide all of this fresh content on an ongoing basis. These programs represent a really incredible resource and body of information and perspective. And if you think about it, in the past, you know, sometimes we would record lectures in our lecture hall, but so much of the programming we did was ephemeral. Now it's there for you to go and look at and enjoy and share as you can. So to summarize this part of it, you know, Zoom programs will remain a central part of our programming going forward. You know, we will, of course, resume in-person lectures and programs like that, but I think we're going to be leading with Zoom from here forward. So what I'd like to do now is just pause, and I think many of you have participated and seen some of the programs, but we just want to give you a little flavor of some of the programming we've done and some of the mojo there. So Kathleen.
Ichabod Howe had been accustomed to old Ipswich, to the luxury of apples and cider, and having determined to emigrate to Pond Town, as he ate a choice apple, he carefully saved the seeds. And when he came, he brought them in his pocket and sowed them on his farm. From his nursery sprang the famous Winthrop Greening, a really excellent apple, I should say, and one still around. The Howe apple, Nelson's favorite, the Lambert apple, and I know not how many other excellent varieties. Here's one from Kennebec County, but not from Winthrop. This is the Starkey. The first cider made in town was from his, Ichabod Howe's, orchard. They had neither cider mill nor press. But thirsting for a beverage to which they were formerly accustomed as almost one of the necessities of life, but had been now a long time without. With true Yankee ingenuity, they pounded a quantity of apples in a sap trough and extracted the juice in a cheese press.
If you don't know the story about the Abyssinian Meeting House, which is why I'm passionate about getting these stories out, you don't understand the incredible history, the Black history. I like to think that it's the bricks and mortar to African American history here in Portland. So many incredible stories about so many incredible people who were globally minded people. They weren't thinking about just the issues here in Portland, Maine. They were helping people with the Underground Railroad, and it was global to end slavery. So I became passionate about it when I started talking to children in schools, and I saw their eyes light up, and I saw little Black children that came up to me, or little brown children that came up to me after I spoke with them, and they learned a little bit about their history. And they were so proud that they finally had something that they could call theirs, their history. And the rest for me is history, because I have been involved with the Abyssinian and since then.
Yeah. God, thank you so much for sharing that. And it's, you know, so I will just call out that there are a lot of links being dropped in the chat that will link you to information on Willie Stewart, the Abyssinian Meeting House, and also the documentary Anger of the Soul, which really tracks the history of African Americans in New England through the story of the Abyssinian Meeting House. And, you know, representation matters, right? It matters that we know our history, that we see ourselves as other than people who were beaten and enslaved. And there's so many examples of that.
And you were also talking about the transmission. So you have those first interactions with the Europeans on the coast, you know, during summertime when folks are gathered. You talk a little bit more about how the transmission across the community and within Maine, how that might have happened.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that, you know, if you think about how we are all divided up, and we didn't all go the coast to one single beach to, you know, so this happens slowly over time, that you get this group of people who become ill, and then maybe someone canoes over to the adjacent beach because there's a young lady over there that he really likes. But there's also trade networks going on, not only just within Wabanaki country, but all the way down to southern New England, where we were taking furs, especially after colonial period, taking furs down there in exchange for like corn, a commodity that was pretty plentiful down there that we didn't have much, you know, kind of east and north of the Kennebec River. The soils just aren't very good for growing corn here. It's not that we didn't know about it. It's just not a good soil. So we used to trade for it. And so through those trade networks, you find that there's a lot of transmission of, you know, a disease such as that.
Je suis pas trop mal à mon aise quand j'ai Joël près de moi. De temps en temps je le regarde en lui disant la belle embrassez-moi. De temps en temps je le regarde. Ready? En lui disant ma belle embrassez-moi. 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 Embrassez-moi.
Veux-tu que je t'embrasse? Tout le monde parlant de moi. J'ai su que tu allais partir. Souviens-toi que tu allais aller.
Thanks, Kathleen. What an energetic performance that was. So over the course of the pandemic, MHS has also been able to advance major collections initiatives this year, pretty remarkably. Collections work was actually a safe activity during the pandemic, and we were able to redeploy many staff to collections access initiatives. MHS received our major National Endowment for the Humanities grant, Beyond Borders, Mapping Maine and the American Northeast Boundary, last April, and we are now well underway in digitizing the proprietors' collections. One of the neat components of the project allows members of the public to volunteer to transcribe pages online remotely via a tool called Zooniverse. So since February, just this past February, 1,100 volunteers from around the world have transcribed 3,500 plus pages. There are about 20,000 overall to transcribe. But it's been this wonderful, fun, participatory activity that lets people really get their fingers into what our work is about with the collections. So that's super neat. If you haven't tried it, and you're looking for a little bit more computer time, you know, we invite you. It's a great exercise and a really fun way to get deep into the historical documents. You've also heard much about our costume project, which over the past 3 years has moved, cataloged, rehoused, and digitized our entire clothing collection, 2,000 plus pieces. In February, we launched a major new section of Maine Memory Network that highlights and features and lets you explore the collection. It includes interpretation by textile historian Jackie Field and more than 200 items from that collection. That collection is going to be the focus of our 2022 exhibition, Northern Treads, 200 Years of Dress at the Maine Historical Society, which will be our big bicentennial exhibition next year. In October, we received a major grant from the Leon Levy Foundation to create a new portal on Maine Memory that will highlight Maine's architectural and landscape architectural collections. This is a project that we didn't expect to be able to undertake for years, but we were able to hustle and seize a funding opportunity that presented itself. Again, this wasn't on our radar and opportunity just presented it ourselves and we attacked. We owe huge thanks to Patrick Chassé and to Noni Ames for teeing this up for us. It's been really remarkable. So that project's going to provide access to information about 7,500 architectural commissions in landscape architecture records in our collections. And it'll have features written by Earl Shuttleworth and Patrick Chassé that really kind of celebrate these traditions. As you know, MHS has been very focused on developing responsive exhibits and programs the last number of years. Our new exhibition and program initiative, Begin Again, Reckoning with Intolerance in Maine, explores how Maine fits into the national dialogue about race that has exploded in such powerful ways this past year. Begin Again builds on the experience, the skill, reputation, and relationship MHS has developed in recent years as we have taken on a whole series of challenging issues in fearless, but I think calm and forward-looking ways. Through collections, stories, and a hard look at less known but critical aspects of Maine history, the exhibit seeks to provide information, context, and really a place to reflect and challenge one's own understandings and assumptions both about Maine and about race. It's really powerful and challenging. Begin Again is curated by communities members Darren Ranko, Crystal Williams, Ann Gass, and MHS's incredible Tilly Lasky, who has done such a fantastic job with our exhibit program. I encourage you to watch the curators panel that they recorded a couple weeks ago. It provides really great insight into how the exhibit came together, how the team worked, and how they really pulled and identified collections to really pull these stories out. The programming in conjunction with Begin Again is going to continue throughout the year. Okay, our 2021 Maine History Maker Award presentation to the Bean Gorman family for its stewardship of LL Bean last month reflects, I think, other important dimensions of MHS's work. The question all nonprofits faced this year was, what does a fundraising event look like, and could you even take on such a thing? The LL Bean family was the highest profile recipient of the award to date, and we knew that the event would put a spotlight on MHS on one hand and provide an opportunity to really demonstrate our work to a broad and influential audience. It gave us the opportunity to show our ability to tell stories that illuminate Maine's identity, its sense of place, and its economy. So we knew that this needed to be an all virtual event and that we had to create a new kind of online experience that would be fun, engaging, and informative, and not just another Zoom program. So we ended up producing a documentary, probably from about 300 images that the company had shared with us, We conducted rare interviews with the family's three branches. It's a very private family, and this was new for them to be willing to open and share. We commissioned some wonderfully eccentric Maine music, and we got to even feature the Brown Library in a lovely interview that Bill Green did with Sean Gorman. So it was great to highlight MHS with that. It was really about upping our game in terms of production values and reach, and I think it really worked. We worked with a great Portland company called Maine Studios to produce the event. It came great. It surpassed our fundraising goals, and we've received really wonderful feedback from the family, company, and audience members. So I think it was a great opportunity to really push MHS's digital storytelling. So with that, I'd like to share a few clips from the event.
Away down east in Maine.
It's great. You know, I think the History Maker Award is a really great reflection of what Maine Historical Society does is about. We issue this award every year to recognize contemporary Mainers who are doing things that will make Maine strong and vibrant in the long term. We launched the award in 2013 as a way to kind of really demonstrate the continuity we see between Maine's past, present, and future, and to really recognize the role that we all have as stewards of Maine. This is the remarkable story how 4 generations of the L.L. Bean family, grounded by their heritage, have created, built, transformed, and stewarded Maine's most important company and positioned it to lead Maine into its 3rd century.
What I know about my grandfather is from observing his history and his lifestyle. He was a buoyant, happy, healthy man. He would go hunting, fishing, camping, and then he'd return with these new product ideas in his sporting goods enterprise that he started first with his brother Guy Bean.
From those hunting trips, the apocryphal L.L. Bean story emerges and the legend is born. In L.L.'s words, "In 1911, I decided after a hunting trip that the shoes I was wearing were no good. Born and bred in the Oxford Hills, the wood trails were no novelty to me. I grew tired of wearing shoes that hurt my feet. Took a pair of shoe rubbers from the stock on the shelves and had a shoemaker cut out a pair of 7.5 tops. The local cobbler stitched the whole thing together."
Parallel to the Adirondacks is the development of Western Maine, particularly the Rangeley area, but lots of other areas in the general area of Western Maine. And all of a sudden, there's a whole new phenomenon, the sporting camp.
LL's early business grew out of these trends, and his innovation, hustle, and quickly emerging persona helped fuel this burgeoning economy and the development of Maine's identity as a refuge from the modern world.
Gee, sure is a good day for a barbecue.
Smells good. How do, bub?
Oh, it's Melly Dunham.
Yeah?
Geez, you keeping busy? Well, you've been all around with that fiddle of yours, haven't you? How'd you do it?
About like this.
Geez, Norway, Paris, Denmark, Naples, Mexico. Geez, and that's just in Maine.
In 1960, LL's grandson, Leon Gorman, got out of the Navy. He didn't yet have a career plan, and his former Bowdoin counselor suggested he consider LL Bean. Leon approached LL, signed on, and set out to learn the business. He spent his first several years working on sales circulars and observing. He took fastidious notes about the problems and opportunities he saw. In the first year, he made more than 400 notes in the small notebook he carried around.
I'd like to start with reading the dedication from Leon's 2006 book, LL Bean, The Making of an American Icon. He worked 8 years to write this book, and he was very proud of it. And he dedicated the book to all the great LL Bean people, past and present, who helped make the icon. Leon felt great admiration for his employees. He loved them, and they loved him. Whenever he would walk through the retail store or the distribution center, as it was called back then, everyone would stop and wave to Leon. Hey, Leon, how are you?
By 2013, as Leon prepared for full retirement, the family focused on succession. It was faced with replacing a second iconic leader. LL and Leon had each led and stewarded the company for 50 years. What would the third era look like? Working with a consultant, the family formed a governance model that draws together cousins from across the family's 3 branches who form a governance committee, which serves as liaison between family members on its board and management. Jen Wilson, Nate Clark, and Sean Gorman serve the family and company in that role today.
Being family-owned shapes the employee experience in every single way. Our culture has been described as palpable, and our culture flows so directly from the values of the company, and the values flow so directly from the legacy of the family and being family-owned.
We started working with LL Bean in probably 2016, 2017, and it started out as a way to unleash the potential of that brand. And as I said, build on the trust that had always been there from the way that they transacted business. But what more could we be? Who else could we talk to? And together we worked with a very talented and dedicated, passionate group of people across the entire organization.
The Maine brand resonates to people around the world today as much as it ever has, thanks in large part to LL Bean. The LL Bean family has positioned the company to continue to lead Maine for the next century. We are incredibly grateful.
I look at myself as, and the 4th generation as the shepherds of this business. Again, we were granted this gift that LL created, handed to Leon. Leon left it much better than when he received it. My goal is to take this company and leave it even better for the 5th generation as they come into leadership. And we're doing all the things we can to ensure they'll be able to lead this company for generations to come.
The LL Bean story is such a fundamental part to, I think, everything we know and think and feel about Maine, and it's a really special evening. So thank you to LL Bean. Thank you for everybody who has joined us. I also want to encourage everybody to stay involved with Maine Historical Society. If you're not a member, please consider joining. We've got great exhibits, great online programs, all kinds of things going on. So we hope to see you real soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I hope that gives you a sense of the busy and productive year MHS has had. I want to just share some thoughts about MHS strategic direction as we move forward. Our major focus continues to be building the financial capacity of MHS. We have developed a program that we believe connects and provides important value to a wide range of Maine audiences and interests. Under Christina's leadership, we have begun to build a really solid fundraising infrastructure. So I can't express enough my appreciation for that. We are a lean, ambitious, and entrepreneurial organization. We are keenly focused on expanding our audience and fundraising base, something that is essential to sustaining and expanding the reach and impact of the important work that we're doing. This year, we will be updating and revising our strategic plan in the wake of the pandemic with a renewed focus on MHS's and Maine's 3rd century. That will focus on building institutional capacity, remote engagement and digital infrastructure, the continued development of Riverside, and revisiting our campus plans. Finally, I want to share some important staff news that is both bittersweet and exciting. Karen Pelletier will retire as Chief Operating Officer in July. This is long planned and something she has been open with us about since she became COO 2.5 years ago. But I can't say enough about what Karen has contributed to MHS and our institutional progress. It's been her experience and leadership and confidence has been just what we've needed to help take MHS to another level. So thank you very much, Karen. At the same time, we are really thrilled that Jamie Rice will be promoted to the new position of MHS Deputy Director, where she'll be responsible for all MHS program areas, IT, and working with the board and I on the strategic direction of MHS. Jamie is an incredible asset to MHS and one of many great partners in crime here. So Jamie, congratulations and thank you for everything you have been doing for MHS for many years and what you'll be doing going forward. I want to close by looking forward to MHS's bicentennial in 2022 and going back to the theme of the future. We see MHS playing a major expanded role in the life of Maine in our shared 3rd centuries. I think the critical question Mainers need to ask going forward are, what are our dreams for Maine's future? What assets and opportunities will drive a strong economy and create prosperity for people and communities across the state? How will we address challenges like climate change and social, economic, and geographic inequity? How will we preserve and strengthen the Maine's incredible sense of place? This is all the work of the 3rd century and going forward. I think all of us here really believe that history is essential to answering each of these questions, and MHS is committed to using its resources to support Maine's preparation for the future. Every aspect of Maine today is fundamentally shaped by its history. You've heard me say that before. The story that MHS preserves and shares, the stories of your families and communities, provide a roadmap of how we got here and of really what makes Maine Maine. So thank you. With that, I will close my director's report, and we're going to move now quickly to the final part of the award, which is one of the funnest and best and our favorite, which is the presentation of awards. So we have four awards we'll be presenting here. The first is the Neil Woodside Allen Jr. History Award, was established in the memory of Neil Allen, who was a distinguished historian, teacher, administrator, and a president of MHS. The award recognizes and honors outstanding contributions to the field of Maine history. Since it was instituted in 1992, the award has gone to really the luminaries of Maine history, including Earl Shuttleworth, Neil Rold, Dick Judd, Alan Taylor, and Lisa Brooks. This year, we are truly pleased to present the Neil Allen Award to Bob Green. Bob descends from generations of Maine residents, including the well-known Portland figure, Reuben Ruby. His extensive knowledge of family history and the history of Portland and Maine's Black community is unsurpassed. His contribution to MHS's bicentennial exhibition, State of Mind, helped document the impact of statehood on Maine's Black community and experience before and after 1820. Bob graduated from Portland High School and then received his degree in journalism from the University of Kansas. During his career as a journalist, he worked for the Associated Press for over 35 years, becoming one of the foremost tennis writers of his generation. Since retiring, Bob has become a full-time genealogist and historian. His historical research and writings document his family, including the Carter, Freeman, Manuel, Matthews, and Ruby families, the latter of which was instrumental in founding Portland's Abyssinian Meeting House. He also documents his personal experience growing up on Munjoy Hill. His publications include numerous articles and contributions to the seminal book, Maine's Visible Black History. Additionally, he is gracious and always willing to share his extensive knowledge, and he has been a huge contributor to MHS as a researcher, friend, ambassador, and trustee. So Bob, thank you very much. Bob's in the room. Because of these Zoom dynamics, we're going to keep things moving, but we're looking forward to raising a glass in person when we can do that. So Bob, thank you so much, and we're so glad and privileged to have you back on the board. Thank you. The next award I'd like to present is the James Finney Baxter Award. This is a cash prize given each year for the best article published in the journal Maine History. The award is made by a vote of the editorial board and named for the tireless scholar and collector of Maine history, James Finney Baxter, who served as the president of MHS from 1891 to 1921, a huge long stretch before modern bylaws and term limits that had a huge impact on the organization. This year, we are pleased to present the award to Matthew Mason for his article, John Holmes and the Shifting Partisan Politics of Slavery in Maine. Really important to statehood and the bicentennial. His article explores the background and perspective of John Holmes of Alfred, one of Maine's first US senators and a key figure in the Maine statehood process. Dr. Mason is a professor of history at Brigham Young University, specializing in history of slavery, early America, and Britain. Last year, he served as the keynote speaker of our own historian forum, and he also presented on John Holmes at the big Maine Bicentennial Conference held at the University of Maine in 2019. Congratulations, Matthew. And as they say, the check is in the mail, but we really appreciate your contributions to so much of the bicentennial and great scholarship on Maine. Thank you very much. The next award I'd like to present is the Elizabeth Ring Service Award, which recognizes outstanding volunteer service. In remembering the towering contributions of Elizabeth Ring, many of you may have known or encountered, it honors exceptional dedication, commitment, and effectiveness. Over the past 25 years, it has gone to a stellar cast of MHS's closest friends, including Hannah Russell, Imelda Schaefer, and Chris Livesay. This year, we are pleased to present the award to Connie DeHay. Connie contacted MHS about volunteer opportunities soon after she retired in 2019. This is a story you'll hear again and again about people who get pulled right in. Since then, she has done Herculean work to make the journal Maine History widely accessible online for free via the University of Maine's Digital Commons website. This will support much broader use of the content of the journal by students, researchers, and the interested public. While past issues had been available to MHS members via our website, they weren't configured in a way or a place that would allow broad public access. So this big process required MHS to break down PDFs of every one of those issues of the journal into its constituent pieces, including articles, book reviews, and biographies. Once that was done, Connie took the reins, starting with volume 51 and working her way all the way back in time, ending with volume 9, which was the first issue of the modern scholarly iteration of the journal, which was published in 1969. So Digital Commons requires each issue in every volume to be separated by article type and indexed with an abstract author names, keywords, and subject headings. There are a lot of pieces. So over the past 2 years, Connie has processed 42 volumes of the journal, including 125 issues, each containing 5 to 10 articles each. The process required Connie to read every article from every issue in order to do this index in the Digital Common. That's about 800 separate pieces on Maine history. So at the moment, Connie, you may have the freshest, most accessed mind to Maine history. So we won't put your email address out here, but I think for quick and ready reference, you're probably the #1 person at the moment. So of course, the project started at the MHS library in person every Wednesday until we shut down for the pandemic. It really did become the perfect pandemic project, though, I think, keeping Connie busy and moving MHS forward. So, and it's pretty remarkable when you see the access number to these articles. So since its launch in June 2019, the Maine history portion of Digital Commons has welcomed 15,000 visitors, and 12,000 articles have been downloaded by 600 institutions from 140 countries around the world. So that's pretty incredible reach for the scholarship that MHS has produced. So Connie, thank you so much for helping to make Maine history more accessible in our web-based world. We really appreciate it. So our final award is one, of course, that is very close to home. The Distinguished Trustee Award was established to recognize the extraordinary service of members of the MHS Board of Trustees. This year, we are very pleased to present the award to Jean Gulliver. Jean was the incoming board class when I took over as executive director 9 years ago, has been an incredible force for MHS and partner throughout our shared tenure. She was the longstanding chair of the Institutional Advancement Committee, and for the past 2 years, she has served as chair of the Board of Trustees. She's going to continue in that role for the year ahead, which we really appreciate given how much has changed and how much has been in flux this year. So your willingness to stay on is a huge gesture for the organization that we really appreciate. Jean has been a strong and consistent in her commitment, rigor, and enthusiasm for taking MHS to the next level. She has done that by championing MHS to friends, colleagues, and everyone she runs into in the community, by identifying, bringing in, and helping close substantial gifts with new donors, and always by pushing for what she sees as right and necessary for MHS. Jean has been critical to getting MHS to the remarkable place it is now, here in June 2021. The flexibility, resiliency, and nose for opportunity that we've been talking about throughout this meeting as we manage the pandemic, the programmatic power of the LL Bean event and Begin Again, and the momentum MHS has built as it approaches its bicentennial. All of those are really a reflection of Jean's spirit and commitment. In this surreal year, we are incredibly fortunate to have Jean's strong leadership. So Jean, really on behalf of everyone in the MHS community, thank you for your tremendous commitment and service and all you've done for MHS.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. It's an honor, truly.
Yeah. And again, one of the things we at the organization and the board and the organization is looking at reopening. And I think we're all feeling the first things we want to do are gather to party and celebrate and reconnect with each other. So we look forward to all of our people coming in and out of the organization on the board, and our award winners. We look forward to bringing everybody together. So with that, that concludes the formal part of the meeting. I'll ask Jean to formally make a motion to close the meeting. But as we've said, I will be around, and Drew, and I know many others, and we just look forward to being able to hang out and have conversation and discussion about any and all things MHS with you. So Jean.
Thank you. Thank you all. May I please have a motion to close this meeting and move us forward for next year? Somebody step forward, please.
So moved.
So moved.
And the second, please.
Second.
Second, Drew. Okay. I will again ask only for objections. Hearing none, this annual meeting, this 199th annual meeting of Maine Historical Society is closed. Thank you. Questions? Everybody's A-okay with that incredible list that Steve put forward of what we're doing and what we've done? Any questions about how, in fact, he did all of that? But
I just want to say it's amazing.
It is amazing. It truly is. And thrilling, and hopefully helpful to
very
the community. Thank you.
Well, I think if there's one theme, it's really, it's MHS is a small and mighty organization that is very ambitious in terms of the impact we think we can and should and want to have on the state. And really everything, the intention, the focus of the staff and the board is how do we build a broader reach so that everybody can connect and really better appreciate Maine for it. So it's quite a path and a journey to kind of focus on building the organization that way, but it's really exciting. And but it's all the people in our world that make it what it is and worthwhile.
Nancy, did you have a comment?
I just wanted to make two comments, observations. What a phenomenal year with, repeating what has been said before. Great gratitude to the staff, the leadership of MHS, and to everyone who volunteers on our behalf. And just a footnote under our commitment to diversity and equity, I'm not sure if many people noticed, but one of our former board members, Teresa Secord, received recognition. She was granted a Luce Fellowship and will be regarded as a culture keeper going forward for her peoples. But she also, when she served on the board, I think helped educate so many of us in very subtle ways to that segment of the Wabanaki in Maine's history. So I just wanted to call that out.
Perfect, Nancy. Thank you so much for highlighting that. That's great. Anybody else? Okay, guys. Have a lovely day.
Here's the garden party in the fall where we can get the garden is open. I should say the garden is open, the gallery is open, and the house is gonna, which was closed all last year, will open in a week or so. So the campus is coming back to life. We hope to see you when you can get by, and please, if you're around, stop by and say hello to me, please. I appreciate it.
And it's time for another beer.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, Bob. They've reopened the outdoor patio at our watering hole.
Yeah. Bye-bye, everybody.